set up?
Good. Perfect.
Got it done. Now I got a bad here, so right. Yep. Oh, really? Yeah, trust me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should be. Yes. Yeah. You need two buttons for that.
So what's the bad mean over there, Jerry? Is that?
That means it's not spinning.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
No, I think sometimes in the
Hey, I've got a badge on stream status. On stream status. I don't know. Well, I don't have a picture. It says it's streaming, it says it's live, but I don't have a picture. On the YouTube channel. Well, it's been 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
and then there's another one.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean on top of the picture? Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I don't know what this, yeah, I don't know what the picture is. All right. Okay. Bye.
I guess it was there before. It was there before.
Picture?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was there today. Oh, I thought it was there today.
Oh, good. So it is working. It's not what you're seeing. Hmm? It's not what you're seeing.
Who has hammer here? Hammer is Quebec.
It's still not the same. I'm looking. Now this is what's going on right here. Just one down the ice. Yeah, there it is. There's your mustard right there. That's what you got. Yeah.
The upper corner is right here.
But this camera is the one that's not the same. This camera is all on the shoot. No, it's just delayed.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
just
it is.
delayed. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Delayed.
they're just
So Jerry, for computer issues, I'm one of the clock one that's working.
This clock is
So what
table right there. Right?
This one here. And we don't get to go out.
So according to what Doug's seeing, this is working, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not getting this. He's telling us something different.
Yeah, I haven't got the picture here. It's delayed like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yep.
Why on this here? Well, that's in the way.
That's the second.
Huh? It's that thing. It's got the.
Now it's gone.
Yeah, because I switched the cameras.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to go move it?
Yeah, we need to do that.
Okay.
That's right. Even just over here.
Yeah.
Laura's right there. Laura, she really got it. Oh, yeah. We'll pick you up this afternoon. He needs. Marlene, this tag's in here. You want to take that? I don't know. Pat didn't want it, but here, I'll come to you for. Yes. So we can play around this morning. We only have you on right now, so
And I'm the only viewer?
yeah, right now.
That work? That work?
Yes.
Do you want to just test the audio?
Yeah. We're 7.
Good morning. We're here at the Guelph Curling Club for the 2017 Canadian Masters Championships. First draw of the event is well underway this morning here in Guelph. 8 sheets of ice. Our feature game this morning involves the men from Quebec and New Brunswick. My name is Rod Stork, and with me this morning is Jerry Sunwald, and we'll provide some commentary this morning as this game proceeds. Keep you updated on live scores, and we hope you enjoy the game wherever you may be. The New Brunswick team is skipped by Adib Samaan, and Quebec is skipped by Greg Sleno.
That's not the proper connector. So I'm gonna have to go to State Piece of Buy one for that. That's the one that something's the hot. No, that's the one that something's on this here. It's a big I don't know, but somehow got in there. So that's when I found the whole thing.
In this first end of the game this morning, Quebec has hammer and will obviously be trying to score more than one.
Yeah, so they're just I'll go to State Piece. Yeah,
That's one. An excellent freeze thrown by New Brunswick on their last rock in the first end. Quebec now will be looking to draw for their one in the first. And an excellent shot by Quebec. So they draw for one. So as we get ready to go to the second end in our feature game this morning, we'll let you know that there are a total of 26 teams taking part in the Masters this year in Guelph. 14 men's teams and 12 ladies. The round robin portion of the draw, which started this morning at 9 a.m. here in Guelph, will run through Thursday morning as teams play in the pool system and then set themselves for playoff positions or relegation positions, depending on how they do in the round robin. Speaking with the curlers this morning before they went on the ice and after their practice, all commented on the fact that the ice appears to be excellent curl and speed, exactly what they're looking for. So it'll provide the curlers with the best opportunity to show their skills. The New Brunswick team that's on the ice this morning, it curls out of the Riverside Thistle St. Andrews Curling Club. Robert McDermott calls the game but throws third rocks for the New Brunswick team. Not work.
The inputs. I can't. If I can toggle through the inputs.
Okay, there's a remote over by the thank you.
Excellent shot by the second for New Brunswick, Don Richie. Around the centerline guard and fully to the forefoot. Here in the second end of our feature game this morning. This year's Masters event is proud to have as our title sponsor High Grade Roofing Systems. And we thank them and all of our sponsors that have supported this event here in Guelph and look forward to a great week of curling.
Good man. But should be able to go to menu, couldn't you? This view is pretty good.
Yeah.
For home, eh? I don't have to flip back and forth a lot. Yeah. The other end you have to flip back and forth. This is pretty good too.
The Quebec team, skipped by Greg Sleno, curls out of the Glenmore Curling Club. Donald Saint Laurent, Laval sur de Lac.
That's scoring? We got scoring? That's good.
So the Canadian Masters features curlers of 60 years of age or over from all across the country. As I mentioned earlier, 14 men's teams and 12 ladies teams taking part in the competition this week. The finals for the medals will take place on Sunday, April the 9th here in Guelph. And the finals in the men and the women will be broadcast live on Rogers Cable TV, so we encourage you, if you have access to Rogers, to tune in to the finals, and we'll have more information on that as the week proceeds. Right now we're in the start of the round robin competition this morning here in Guelph. You can also access the website for live update scores on all of the games on the 8 sheets of ice that are out here this morning. 3 draws will be going each day, 9, 1, and 7 o'clock. And we will be streaming a feature game each draw. And be glad to have you on board taking our game. We also have a live chat feature if you're on watching the game and have any questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you across wherever you may be watching the games. Fairly straightforward end here in the second end between New Brunswick and Quebec. Masters games are all 8 ends in length, and each team is given 30 minutes of talking time to play their game. In addition, each team has 2 90-second timeouts if they require them during the game. Four rock rule is in play. No rock in the free guard zone can be removed until the 5th rock is thrown. So New Brunswick is coming with their last rock and will be trying to blank the second end. Take hammer into the third and see if they can build an end. And there we have it, a blank end in the second. So after 2 complete ends of play, we have Quebec 1, New Brunswick 0. So we move into the third end of our feature game this morning, and leading off for Quebec, Robert Martel. Throwing lead stones for New Brunswick is Danny MacDonald. As we look across the ice this morning on all 8 sheets, the games in general are very close, playing very clean, open games, which probably is not unexpected given that teams are feeling out the ice and getting a good sense of what's taking place with the ice. Looking to probably become a little more aggressive as the game proceeds. Across the 8 sheets of ice this morning, on ice number 1, we have Nova Scotia versus PEI on the ladies' side. On ice number 2, we have Northwest Territories versus BC on the men's side. On ice number 3, we have Nova Scotia versus Northern Ontario on the men's side. Of course, our feature game on ice number 4 is Quebec versus New Brunswick. On sheet number 5, we have Saskatchewan versus Alberta on the ladies' side. Sheet 6, Yukon Northwest Territories versus Saskatchewan. Pardon me, the Yukon Territory, my apologies. Yukon versus Saskatchewan on the men's side. On sheet number 7, we have Newfoundland versus BC on the ladies' side. And on sheet number 8, we have our own Ontario ladies versus the Yukon. On sheet 3, there are two veteran curlers, skips playing this morning. Al Hackner skips Northern Ontario, and Steve Ogden skips Nova Scotia. And if you've followed curling, you'll know that those two gentlemen have been in Briars in past and have won Briars in the past. So the level of competition in the Masters very, very high, as we would expect. So as we proceed into our feature game once more, Quebec currently lying 2, one at the back of the house behind the 4-foot and one near the top in the 12-foot. We're down to third rocks in the third end here between Quebec and New Brunswick. Gaetan Lachapelle from Quebec throwing his first of 2 rocks in the third end. And once again, Quebec will be sitting 2 as New Brunswick gets ready to throw their first third stone. No.
Yeah. Well, the timers kind of, well, that's what we want them to do. Or Laura can do it, I don't know.
Gaetan Lachapelle
Laura?
throwing his last rock of the third end.
For the camera, overhead cameras? Oh, yeah.
I haven't been.
No, but
Okay.
can we,
Okay, do you want me to do that?
or have the timers do it? They're right there.
All right. Walter is. Walter's switching that.
Well, I figured he would.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't.
I'm not moving over there.
No, you can't. Your sheet 5? I don't have 5. 5's down there. But I can do 3.
5 is Bruce.
Yeah, that's different. How do you do it? You're looking at this one.
No, I'm kind of watching that one. We'll do switch. We'll switch it. Oh, you want to switch? Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll switch that. Yeah.
Robert McDermott from New Brunswick throwing his second of his 2 rocks from the third position.
I'm happy Rod's here this morning until I get used to this.
Trying to play a freeze down on the most recent rock, and looks like an excellent shot as it goes into the house.
Thanks, sir. See you
New Brunswick was able to bump the shot rock, but still Quebec is sitting the 1 on the tee line behind cover. Some history on the Canadian Masters Championship. These championships have been going since the year 2000 and have moved across the country, as do many of the competitions at the national level. And we're very pleased to be able to host the event here in Ontario in cooperation with Curl Ontario and the Guelph Curling Club. It's our pleasure to host this event here in Ontario.
Yeah, he's really good. I'm trying to manage the technology. My mic's turned off. Right there.
Quebec's first of 2 skip stones coming into the house, trying for that second shot. And it'll be very close to second, but I believe New Brunswick may have second shot still. As the curlers are finding out, there's a good deal of curl both from the wings into the center and from the center out to the wings. And as the week progresses, we know the curlers will be picking up on that and brooming themselves accordingly as they figure out their strategy for the game. So we have Adib Samaan ready to throw his first rock, playing a run back. Trying to remove that shot rock that Quebec has on the tee line. Just slid by on the outside. Once again, late curl on the hits and draws, fooling the curlers just a bit this morning early in the first draw. Well, the run back wasn't totally successful. It has opened up the shot rock, so Quebec will want to, I'm sure, place a second shot in there and so forth. Quebec skip Greg Sleno throwing his first rock here in the third end. Looking to draw to the open side of the house to sit 2. And that shot just a bit heavy, sliding through the back of the house. Which now gives New Brunswick the opportunity to get to that shot rock. It does look like New Brunswick, however, is going to use the guard that's out front and try to draw around and into the house for shot. So Adib Samaan throwing his last rock here in the third end for New Brunswick. Looking to draw the house. Utilize the guard. Very close now as to who has shot rock. Still appears that Quebec has shot rock, but they'll take a very close look at this because it's going to determine what the next shot will be, obviously. Measure time, first measure of the competition, I believe. In the Masters event, the curlers do their own measuring. If it's very close or they can't determine exactly who's shot, then we'll call the official. So the measure's been completed. We'll update the score for you in just a moment. So the measure determined that indeed it was a second point for Quebec. So after 3 complete ends of play, Quebec now leads 2-0.
Thank you.
So our feature game this morning moving right along into the fourth end as Quebec and New Brunswick battle it out in the first draw of the round robin portion of the Masters 2017. Okay. Okay. So as we look across the sheets here this morning, just to update the scores for you. On sheet number 1, Nova Scotia versus PEI in the ladies' game. Score of 2-0 for Prince Edward Island. After 2 ends of play on sheet number 2, we have BC leading the Northwest Territories 4-0. On sheet 3, Nova Scotia versus Northern Ontario. Still in the third end of that game as they work through. I'll give you a score as soon as I can pick up the scoreboard. In our feature game, as I said, sheet number 4. Quebec leading the game over New Brunswick 2-0. On sheet number 5, we have Saskatchewan after 3 ends leading Alberta 4-2. On sheet number 6, Saskatchewan men versus the Yukon. The Yukon Territory is leading Saskatchewan 2-1. After 3 ends on sheet number 7, BC leads Newfoundland 3-1. And on sheet number 8, we have Ontario versus Yukon Territory on the ladies' side. Ontario cracked a big 5 in the very first end of the game and stole 2 more in the second and has a commanding lead of 7-0 over the Yukon. And back to sheet 3, where we now can pick up the scoreboard in the third, still playing the third end, but after 2, Northern Ontario leads Nova Scotia 3-1. So back to our feature game. Again, a fairly clean end taking place. Let's go back in New Brunswick. Keep things pretty open as we're into the 4th.
There's a, in that big box in that room, there's a bag of bucks. I don't know if there's any right ones to.
With all the Masters games being 8 ends in length, after the 4th end, the teams have a 4-minute break. And as mentioned earlier, each team is allowed 2 90-minute timeouts through the 3 ends, and are also given 30 minutes of actual thinking time, as it's referred to, in which they can play the 8 ends.
Yeah, that would be easier. Well, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
So 1 long guard in play here on sheet number 4 in our feature game between Quebec and New Brunswick, and New Brunswick went around the guard and Quebec followed them down and is now sitting shot rock. Basically covered by the guard, but with the amount of curl that's in the ice here this morning, New Brunswick can certainly get to that rock and freeze on the corner for first shot. We're here at third rocks already on the 4th end, and Robert McDermott ready to throw.
It's funny. I don't think it's a heavy enough transformer.
I think when he worked around to fix that one, he must have, because this one was working.
An excellent tap by Brian McDermott, tapping the Quebec Yellowstone to the edge of the 12-foot. And now Quebec is looking at 2 as Gaetan Lachapelle throws his second rock of the end. Possibility for a double here. Ooh. Excellent try on the double, just slid by the second shot. So Quebec lies one here in the fourth. And Brian MacDiarmid will be throwing his second of his 2 rocks from the third position here in the fourth for New Brunswick. Excellent shot by Brian MacDiarmid.
Yeah, there. See? It's on there now, so you know.
Yeah, that one's for you. That's for the laptop. I'm gonna go to the Staples and see if I can find a copy.
Greg Sleno throwing his first rock of the fourth end for Quebec. And once again, the try for the double. Shot rock taken out, however, the double was missed. Now both teams are checking to see who shot rock.
It's like it competes after this something.
Yeah.
It does appear right now that yellow is shot, but again, it will be close.
Right?
What was that?
He's asking 5 at the end of 4. Then we'll go back. Yeah.
So Adib Samaan for New Brunswick will be throwing his first rock here in the fourth end. Again, playing the hits, so New Brunswick must feel that Quebec is currently shot. And a jam on the hit attempt. For sure, Quebec is currently sitting one with a possibility of a second. Very close. I believe Greg Sleno will be playing a hit on that red rock and will then leave a draw for New Brunswick to get their 1 point here in the fourth. As mentioned earlier, there will be a 5-minute break after the fourth end for the teams before we begin the second half of the game. Here comes Quebec's last rock in the fourth end. A nose hit will leave Quebec's Sitting 2 as the hit curled just a bit too much and rolled out. So Quebec lies 2 as Adib comes to throw his last rock for New Brunswick. You can probably hear in the background the crowd's excited. There must have been some good shots on other sheets. So here we come with the last rock of the 4th end for New Brunswick, drawing against 2 yellow counters for Quebec. Sweepers are sliding down beside this one, and that sometimes is not a good sign. So for sure, Quebec has stolen 1. They're now going to take a look. Looks like 1. So we've reached the 4th end break in our feature game this morning between Quebec and New Brunswick. And after 4 ends, the score is 3-0 for Quebec.
It's okay. I just didn't want to burn you.
I think some of you guys need personal trainers to stretch and. I'm standing right. Yeah. And actually, Rob, can you stand up and stretch and bend?
Oh, very good.
Can you do that?
Good through the first so either dumb luck or something.
Steel there, right? Jerry and I are debating it.
Watch that. She didn't finish the measures, and I just want to make sure they got these ones.
Oh, okay.
I canceled that. Oh, okay.
or 3 weeks.
Ever since I got back into St. John,
We're not gonna overcharge you. Yeah, Rob. You paid it? You paid it? Oh, they paid it. No, we paid. Oh, well, I wrote checks out for that night. Oh.
I've been just carting around here and I haven't actually watched any. Oh, I know.
I have no clue yet. Hopefully I'll just go back. Well, you record the time.
Well, it's okay.
Not running yet. Oh, they're no. It doesn't. Oh, so they're looking. They're waiting. Their screen is. Yeah. So all I did was go to mid game, and then this is the space bar. Are these sort of and they rented
So welcome back to those of you who are online catching our game here this morning in the first draw of the 2017 Canadian Masters, coming from Guelph, Ontario. And we welcome all of you who might be listening in and watching the our feature game this morning between Quebec and New Brunswick. My name is Rod Stork, and it's my pleasure to provide a little bit of commentary throughout the game today. And if you have any comments or questions that you want to ask, be sure to go on our live chat and we'll try to address any questions you might have. Full 8 sheets of action here this morning in the first draw of both men's and women's competition. As we mentioned off the top this morning, there are a total of 26 teams taking part in the Masters this year, 14 men's teams and 12 ladies teams from all across the country. The Guelph Curling Club and the City of Guelph is very pleased to be able to host this event in cooperation with Curl Ontario as the host provincial association. And I particularly want to thank all the volunteers who have put their name forward to help us carry this out. Over 150 volunteers from our curling club and surrounding area who are working hard to give all the curlers not just good curling, but a great visit to the City of Guelph. So we're underway again in our feature game between Quebec and New Brunswick. Quebec currently ahead 3-0 after 4 ends. Means once again New Brunswick will have the hammer in the 5th end. Adib Samaan's draw shot in the 4th end for 1 was just a bit heavy and allowed Quebec to steal 1 point again for that 3-0 lead. As we mentioned off the top, the Masters are 8-end games. 2 90-second timeouts that each team has and 30 minutes of thinking time that's provided each team to play their 8 ends. Certainly our feature game here this morning moving right along very, very well. New Brunswick now is going to have to probably take a few more risks in the second half of the game as they're down 3-0. So we'll see how the strategy plays out for New Brunswick and how Quebec responds to that challenge. There's a very nice freeze attempt to the top of the forefoot. Partially open between 2 yellow rocks in the house. And it does appear we're going to have more rocks in play in this end for sure, so make this 5th end an interesting one for the 2 teams.
Because whether they can or not, like, yeah. Anyway, so we got him just on break. Anyway, no, I thought I was just going to check with you. I didn't know whether they were made under another name. Yeah. Like maybe they were under another name or something. So yeah, if you could check that with them, that'd be great. Thank you.
Quebec, Louis Saint Laurent trying a double takeout and unfortunately jammed in the back rock, and now I believe Don Richie in the hack for New Brunswick, the second. Playing a mid-range weight takeout on the yellow rock on the top of the forefoot that Quebec has. Once again, you can see the amount of curl in the ice. Rock reacts very, very well. And a very nice shot by Don Richie. And New Brunswick now lies 3 as we proceed in the 5th end. Here's Gaetan Lachapelle for Quebec, throwing his first of 2 rocks from the 3rd position. And as we said off the top, as we started the second half of this game, New Brunswick would probably be taking a little bit more in the way of risk as they're down 3-0, and we certainly have rocks in play in this end. Gaetan's draw shot is a little bit light and provides a guard at the top of the house near the center line. Again, the end is building quite nicely for New Brunswick at this point. Probably a question now of where do you put the next rock, because you get it in the wrong place and obviously Quebec will have a chance at a double or a better chance for a freeze. Across the 8 sheets of ice that we have here in Guelph this morning, all the games now are into their 5th end. We'll update the scores for you after the completion of this feature game's 5th end between New Brunswick and Quebec. Our feature game in the afternoon draw this afternoon will have Saskatchewan versus Quebec on the ladies' draw. So we look forward to that and hope you can join us again this afternoon if you're out there, and encourage any friends you know might be home to join us on streaming as we stream a feature game every draw throughout the week. There's an excellent shot by Brian McDermott for New Brunswick. Or Robert McDermott, pardon me, Robert. Quebec is now looking at 4 red counters in the rings as Gaetan Lachapelle looks to throw his last of 2 rocks from the 3rd position. Quebec looking for a hit and a little bit of a roll behind the cover provided by their 2 guards at the center line. This rock is really curling from Gaetan, as he had a little bit of a slip coming out of the hack and probably got the rock started a little bit. And on this ice here in Guelph, you get a rock started and it's going to over curl just about every time. So again, New Brunswick lying 4. As Robert MacDiarmid comes down the ice to throw his second of 2 shots here in the 5th end. Watching Robert throw his rock, and he's one of the few curlers who lifts the rock in his delivery. Goes back to the days when that was how all curlers played, lifting the rock in their delivery. Now you see the majority of curlers today, there's a no-lift delivery, and don't take that rock off the ice. So New Brunswick shot didn't quite do the job that they wanted. It is a guard, but it has left an opening for Greg Sleno to come down and get an inside roll. It'll make it very difficult then for New Brunswick if that does happen because of the guards that are out front. You can see the rocks are basically open for Greg, that he can get that inside roll.
I'm watching here. I'm doing the same here, because this is what you got here, and this is. But the sound sync, we're at 26 watching now.
So this is a big shot for Greg. Certainly if he can get an inside roll, it's going to make it very difficult for New Brunswick. Sweepers are working very hard on this rock. Again, curling rapidly. And another rack on the guard that New Brunswick left. So once again, New Brunswick sitting 4 as Adib Samaan comes to throw his first rock in the 5th end. Again, the amount of curl appears to be fooling the curlers just a little bit, as the ice is very much weight sensitive. And talking with all the curlers this morning after practice, they said that's what they like. They like to see ice that does curl, so they're getting their wish. Sometimes bad, sometimes good. Here's Adib's first rock in the 5th end. Again, playing an outside-in shot, out turn. Sweepers are working very hard on this shot of Adib's. And again,
The only one that matters
is leaving
that's whatever.
the opportunity for Greg to certainly get a hit and roll off, or it appears he's going to draw it with an in-turn draw to the 4-foot. Again, with the amount of curl, certainly it's available to him. With the intent, obviously, to try and cut this end down that has been built by New Brunswick. So Greg Sleno throwing his last rock here in the 5th end against 4, with New Brunswick having the hammer. The initial reaction from the sweepers is that this rock may be heavy. We're out in new ice out here, and this will hold the pebble pretty well. And this rock is running very straight and appears to be heavy. And the rock slides right through the house, leaving New Brunswick a wide open draw for 5. As a skip, this is your dream when you're coming to throw your last rock, that you're already have 4 in the bank and an opportunity to put a 5-ender on the board. Adib coming down to throw his last rock, and he has a smile on his face, and I know what that means. It's that nice feeling to know you've got an open draw for 5. Again, playing the in-turn, right-hander's in-turn. There has not been a lot of shots down this side of the ice through the game. So again, weight will be critical, as it always is on the draw shots. Sweepers are working on this. Getting much better curl here than what Greg had on his last rock for Quebec. And there it is, a big 5 on the board for New Brunswick.
Getting better all the time.
So we have a 5 for New Brunswick, and after 5 ends of play, it's New Brunswick 5, Quebec 3. So as we look across the board, after 4 ends on sheet number 1, Nova Scotia leads PEI 4-2. After 4 ends, pardon me, after 5 ends, BC leads the Northwest Territories 9-1. So that game is in full control with BC leading. On sheet 3, Nova Scotia and Northern Ontario. Northern Ontario leads 4-1 after 4 ends of play. And as I mentioned in our feature game, big 5 in the 5th end for New Brunswick, and they now lead Quebec 5-3. After 4 ends of play, Saskatchewan leads Alberta 6-2. After 5 ends of play on sheet number 6, the Yukon Territory leads Saskatchewan 4-2. Now on sheet number 7 on the ladies' draw, BC leads Newfoundland and Labrador 4-2. And on sheet 8, on the ladies' side, Ontario's Dale Curtis leads the Yukon 11-1. So Dale Curtis getting off to a fast start for Ontario. Back to our feature game in number 6, Quebec and New Brunswick. Quebec now has the hammer after that big 5 from New Brunswick. Very nice raise hit and cleaned the house, cleaned the front out for New Brunswick. And Red rolled over to the corner with their shot. So Quebec now drawing, Trying to utilize that red rock on the right side. And the draw shot just rubbed the red. Rolls to the tee line in the 8 foot, but wide open for New Brunswick. Here's an out turn. Or sorry, an in-turn hit. And again, successful and a nice roll to the button for New Brunswick. Quebec and Louis Saint Laurent looking to play a hit. This shot is running. A little more weight and rock tends to straighten up. The hit's successful, however, Quebec rolls out, leaving New Brunswick still sitting 1 in the top of the 12. Here's a draw for New Brunswick to split the house on the top of the 12 foot. No double opportunity there. Quebec now is in the situation of having to take a little bit more risk here as they're down by 2. So looking to use that, just throwing rock at the top of the 12 to go around it. Try to hide. Certainly with the amount of curl and draw weight, this rock will certainly bend. Just to provide you with an update on scores on sheet number 3, Northern Ontario skip by Al Hackner is now ahead of Nova Scotia and skip Steve Ogden by a score of 7-2. Louis Saint Laurent for Quebec trying to draw around. Got more curl and tapped the red, but sits wide open on the top of the 8 foot for New Brunswick. So just a reminder to everyone that the second draw this afternoon will be with you once again. The draw starts at 2 p.m. and we look forward to having you with us and letting anyone else out there know about our stream feed, and they can join us this afternoon. Our feature game will be Quebec against Saskatchewan on the women's side. In our feature game here, Quebec looking at 3 red rocks in the house spread around in the 12 foot. An opportunity to freeze here. Certainly Quebec trying to get a 2. Well, New Brunswick will be trying to force Quebec, if they can, to taking no more than 1. Sweeper's working very hard on this draw shot of Gaetan Lachapelle. And bringing the rock into the top of the 8, just ahead of the tee line. But the opportunity is there to play a hit and get rid of that yellow rock. Robert MacDiarmid in the hack for New Brunswick. Again, playing the outside in hit, which runs a little bit straighter on this ice here in Guelph. But here was the break that Quebec really wanted. A jam on that hit. Leaves New Brunswick shot. However, Quebec with the jam at the back of the house now sits second. And an open hit here for Gaetan Lachapelle. And Quebec could be sitting two. So here comes Gaetan's last rock of the sixth end. Sweepers on and off, so that's always a good sign when you're throwing a hit. And he's right on the nose. Sits biting the button. It'll be a very thin double if New Brunswick wants to take it on. However, Adib could throw a hit and roll to the face of the yellow at the back of the 8-foot. And we have our first final of the first draw this morning. Ice number 2, British Columbia knocked off the Northwest Territories in 6 ends. Adib's hit was right on the nose. Again, giving Quebec the opportunity to hit and stick for to lie 2. So Greg Sleno will be playing his first rock of the 6th end. The final score in that game with British Columbia and Northwest Territories was BC 9 and Northwest Territories 1. And our feature game here on sheet 4. This rock is curling and a hit. And rolled across and tapped their own shot. Quebec now lying 1 but wide open at the back of the 8. This will provide the opportunity for Adib Samaan and his New Brunswick crew to play a hit and stick and force Quebec to take 1. Again, I think the swing on the ice is fooling the curlers just a little bit as you come down weight on your hits. And we're seeing a lot of curl. So here's New Brunswick's last rock in the 6th end. And right away, boys are off on. And again, oh, and a thin double takeout by Adib Samaan, which probably was not exactly what he wanted to do, but successful anyway. It now forces Quebec to a draw. As everyone says, skips are paid to make these shots, so Greg is facing some pressure here as he comes with his last rock, drawing against 3, but needing the full 8 foot to score. Sweepers starting to dig in a little now. This rock comes down the ice. And a very nice draw by Greg to the back of the 4 foot. So 1 point for Quebec in the 6th. And after 6 ends of play, we have New Brunswick 5, Quebec 4. So as we move into the 7th end, New Brunswick now has the hammer. Robert Martel is first up, throwing lead rocks for Quebec. I mentioned earlier this morning in our broadcast that there'll be 3 draws Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And on Friday, April the 7th, there will be 4 draws as we move into the championship rounds and so forth at that time. And as I mentioned earlier, the finals of the 2017 Masters will take place on Sunday. And those both finals, men's and women's, will be broadcast live on Rogers Cable TV. During their time in Guelph, the curlers will have an opportunity to see some of the sights and sounds of the city of Guelph. Also, we'll be hosting, the Guelph Curling Club will be hosting a 150 anniversary celebration at the Victoria Park East Golf Course on Wednesday evening for all curlers and their guests. And on Saturday night will be the Champions Banquet at the Holiday Inn here in Guelph. That time, the Sportsmanship Awards for both men's and women's will be awarded. And those awards are voted on by the players themselves to the individuals who demonstrate sportsmanship and skill throughout the week of curling here at the Masters. Danny Macdonald throwing for New Brunswick here in the 7th end. 2 guards up for Quebec. And New Brunswick now going around that for second shot and looking like this is going into the top of the 4. Just to the top of the 4, and a second red rock for New Brunswick sitting at the back 12 on the center line as well. So the end again is on here. Quebec has their guards up, but now they're going to have to negotiate getting their rock somewhere on top of that shot that was just thrown by New Brunswick. We have our second final of the day on sheet number 8 in the ladies' side. Ontario comes out the victor. Dale Curtis's team from the Golf and Country Club wins over the Yukon at 12-1. A big win for Dale Curtis in her first round-robin game of the competition. So Quebec's draw came to the top of the 12. Of course, now New Brunswick wants to clean out the top of the house and open up those rings so that they'll have something to play with when they get to Skip Rocks. Don Richie peels off one of the guards. Now the second for Quebec, Louis Saint Laurent will, I believe, try to play a tap on the yellow rock that's sitting at the top of the 12, promoting it further into the rings. Sweeper's indicating it may be a little bit heavy to begin with. And indeed that is the case as the rock slides by that yellow rock at the top of the 12 and through the back of the house. Advantage New Brunswick. Don Richie throwing his second rock of the 7th end. Updating scores across the board on sheet number 1. Nova Scotia continues to lead PEI after 5 ends, 4-2. We mentioned that British Columbia defeated the Northwest Territories on ice 2. On ice number 3, Al Hackner and his Northern Ontario team are leading Steve Ogden and his Nova Scotia team 7-4 after 6 complete ends. On sheet 5, the Saskatchewan ladies are leading Alberta by a score of 8-3. On our feature game, New Brunswick has the opportunity here to play a hit on the top yellow at the top of the 12-foot and sit 3. And certainly a multiple score in this end would make it very difficult for Quebec to come back. On sheet number 6 on the men's side, Saskatchewan scored a big 3 in the 6th end, and they now lead the Yukon 6-5 after 6 ends of play. British Columbia ladies lead Newfoundland and Labrador by a score of 6-2 after 6 ends. And as mentioned, Ontario defeated the Yukon in their first game 12-1 on the ladies' side. New Brunswick, Robert McDermott successful in his hit and a big roll to the side of the house just at the top of the 8-foot. Now it's decision time for Greg and his team from Quebec as they're trying to steal here in the 7th, but rocks are positioned quite well at the moment for New Brunswick. It appears they're going to try a freeze on the top rock, top of the 4, Gaetan Lachapelle. Again, the thinking being play the freeze and have the opportunity then to tap after that. Shot coming to the top of the house and into the house. Not quite to the face of that red stone, but a rock that's playable for Quebec, and so New Brunswick is going to make a play at the yellow rock. There is enough space to chip that rock out. And probably New Brunswick doesn't really care if they stick around with their shooter in this case, because it's just another rock to for Quebec to make some use of. Comes the rock into the house, and ooh, just chipped the yellow rock. Moved it off the center line to where now Quebec is sitting second shot. New Brunswick has shot at the top of the 4. So opportunity for Quebec as they try to steal here in the 7th. And Greg Sleno will come down and to throw his first rock of the 7th end for Quebec. Believe now with Quebec having second shot here, Greg is going to try a double, certainly to get that one off the top of the 4 and maybe roll behind the corner guard, and hopefully be sitting 2 after this shot. Greg's been struggling this morning with his hit weight and hit line. The sweepers are on this rock. There's the hit and there's the roll. Half buried on the tee line, and Quebec now sits 2. A turnaround in this game and this end with that little chip miss of Robert MacDiarmid's. So Adib Samaan is down to the hack to throw his first rock in the 7th end. Be playing a hit and a roll. See if he can double those 2 yellows out. Sweepers are on this as it's down the ice. Going very hard. There's the hit. There's the roll over, and a fine double takeout by Adib Samaan. Excellent shot. And New Brunswick now lying 3 with Quebec's last rock to come here. So Quebec is taking a timeout on our feature game here to have a look at this. Obviously, with Greg's last rock coming and not having the hammer, this is probably do or die for this game. As I mentioned earlier, each team is given 2 90-second timeouts during the game. And this is a fairly important decision that needs to be made here in this first game in the round-robin first draw of the 2017 Canadian Masters. Our officials for the event throughout the week this week are Kathy Ryan and Bill O'Rourke, both experienced officials, and we're very pleased to have them with us all week as they work with the curlers, monitoring timeouts and ensuring that all the games go off without a hitch. So we thank Kathy and Bill very much. So, time is back in for Quebec. And we'll see in a moment what Greg and his team have decided to come up with. And here we go for Quebec. Again, sweepers indicating that this rock may be a little heavy. Out of Greg's hand. Getting nice curl, but this looks a little bit heavy. Just rubs off the top red. And rolls to the back of the 8-foot. Leaving New Brunswick counting one and the chance to probably put the game away if they can take that yellow rock that Greg just threw out of play. Adib made a great double on his first rock of the 7th end, and now he has an opportunity for a half rock hit and score 3, maybe 4. And probably put this game away. So here we go with the last rock of the 7th end for New Brunswick. Sweepers on and off this rock. On and off. Line looks good. Line looks excellent. And there you have it. There's a big 4 for New Brunswick, and time for the Velcro pull on the gloves as New Brunswick scores 4. And making the final score, New Brunswick 9, Quebec 4. Congratulations all around to both teams in the first round robin game. So as we mentioned to you, we'll be back with you again this afternoon at 2 p.m. Our feature game this afternoon will be on the ladies' side, Quebec versus Saskatchewan. Just to recap the scores for everyone, the games that have either been completed or still going on. In the 6th end, Nova Scotia continues to lead PEI by a score of 5-2 as they play the 7th. British Columbia defeated the Northwest Territories 9-1. Al Hackner continues to lead with his Northern Ontario team against Steve Ogden and his Nova Scotia crew on sheet 3, as we just mentioned. On sheet 4, our feature game, New Brunswick beat Quebec 9-4. Saskatchewan ladies continue to lead the Alberta ladies as they play the 7th. Scoreboard is blocked for me right now, but we know Saskatchewan at this point is still ahead. And the Saskatchewan men, after a big 3 in the 6th end, continue to lead the Yukon by a score of 6-5. British Columbia, Newfoundland, Labrador. British Columbia continues to lead that game in the ladies' side. And on sheet number 8, Dale Curtis of Ontario defeated the Yukon by a score of 12-1 in the ladies' side, first game for both teams. So we're going to sign off after the completion of the feature game. Again, New Brunswick beating Quebec 9-4. We look forward to joining you again this afternoon at 2 p.m. We hope you'll join up with us. This is Rod Stork, and along with my colleague Jerry Sunwald, who's been looking after the technical stuff here this morning. It's been a pleasure being with you. We'll talk to you this afternoon. Take care, everybody.